Hi, I'm Eileen Dillon, MSW. The event of the coronavirus and its impact on the world is bringing me here to create some videos in order to share with you what I have learned over the last 50 years that I believe will help us all to get through this experience. For the last 50 years, I have worked as a licensed marriage and family therapist and as a clinical social worker in the state of California. And during that time, I've helped thousands of people. I've also been an author, a professional speaker, an internet radio host, and I've taught webinars and continuing education classes, and also, I've done a lot of emotional healing with myself and now consider myself a recovered angry person. 3 months ago, I released my first book called Emotions in Motion: Mastering Life's Built-in Navigation System. So, to start this series, I want to talk with you and set the groundwork for the way in which we can talk about how do we deal with ourselves emotionally? How do we deal with loneliness? How do we deal with feelings of anger? How do we deal with intense fear? How do we deal with each other? How do we survive our relationships? There are a lot of things that are coming up for us to consider right now. And now is the time for us to complete and move on through this. So let me start with a notion that was brought to me, and I'm not sure how I ever pulled it together, many years ago. And I've used it in my own life, and I used it with thousands of people I've worked with as a therapist and speaker and workshop leader. That notion is that our earth is a big, giant school. So, as you listen to the things I share, I'd like you to keep in mind the notion that we all have come to the earth in order to learn and grow. And the earth is a fantastic environment for learning. And interestingly, we'll talk about this more later, we've been given some wonderful tools to help us navigate our lives. They're called emotions, and they are a gift to us to help us figure out what we need to do when things happen. And you may notice that with the event of coronavirus, emotions are really running high. And that suggests to me that we have a lot of emotional learning to do. And I'm very excited to share with you what I have been able to learn. Overall, I will preface this by saying to you that we can master the emotions that come up inside of us. We can choose where we focus our attention and what emotions we allow to occupy our landscape. And that's part of what we can do when we learn to operate in our giant school. So now think about it. If you were going to build a school, wouldn't you like to make it a beautiful place that has systems for teaching people, that gives quick feedback so you can learn, and give some tools, maybe a few things in a backpack, so that people have what they need in order to do the learning? Well, if you think about Earth, it fits those characteristics. The Earth is a beautiful, beautiful planet. Not only that, it's concrete. Whenever we say something, do something, interact with our environment or with other people, we get feedback. That's what I mean by concrete. We put something out, we get feedback, we get a response. We get to see in others the effects of what we've done and in our environment. Now, along with this comes a bit of responsibility, and I will just suggest right now that most of us have not been taking the responsibility that is ours, that regards the things that we've been doing and the impact we've been having on our environment, on our world, on other people. And that's part of what we need to consider and work with right now. So, one of the things that is primary and is given to us is emotions, and they help us through our learning. But how do we learn? We learn by having experiences. Coronavirus is an experience. It's a worldwide experience. It's one we're sharing, really having a living demonstration of how connected we are, all of us in this world. And we have an experience, and along with that experience comes emotions. In this case, fear, anger, dread, anxiety, anger and fury that it should occur, um, denial. You know, one of the first things that people do when tragedy strikes is they go into denial. And the purpose of that is so that we can kind of drip the information to ourselves so we don't get overwhelmed. So a lot of people are in denial right now, and you might be angry with them because some people's denial is going to perhaps put you at greater risk of getting the virus. However, it's a very human thing to have to go into denial whenever there's a tragedy that strikes. So a lot of people are in denial, and other people are going to be having numerous kinds of reactions to what's going on. And we need to leave a little room for all of that to occur. So the experience brings emotions. And one of the things I want to offer you is that we don't own emotions. We often talk about my anger, my fear, my upset, and as if we own those things. And it's a good idea not to refer to them as owning them. We don't own emotions any more than we own the water that goes through the river, right? Uh, Emotions are energy. Energy is made to move. Energy of emotions is made to move through us and on. And the problems we end up having with emotions is because we don't allow them to do that. We go into what is known as resistance. We resist letting emotions go through. We don't want it to happen. We don't want to face something. We don't want to feel something. And so we resist it. And resistance in nature, in other forms of energy, and in us is what causes us to have problems and to suffer. So part of what I'm going to be talking with you about is how you can unresist emotions, how you can allow them to move through you. So these emotions come with our experiences, and every emotion has a message for us. Love, for example, the message of love is come closer. Every emotion has a message for us. And up to this point, we haven't learned what those messages are. We didn't even know that emotions are trying to give us a message. But what I've been able to learn over the last 50 years is that when you know the emotion and the message that it has, and you listen to that message and work with it, then you can complete the lesson that's embodied in your experience. So, what might some of the lessons be when we're talking about coronavirus right now? We need to think really, really big. I made a list for myself. One thing that we need to learn is that we can't take life for granted. We'll talk more about these things. Another is that we need to face fact. We need to look squarely. We need to learn to look squarely at what is actually happening and not what somebody else is telling us or what we'd like to believe or what we've been trained to believe. Anything that is presented to our brains repeatedly is accepted as truth and goes into our subconscious as true. And that's part of what we're having to change right now. So, there are a lot of other things that we need to learn as a result of this virus, and we'll talk about that the next time we meet. I'm Eileen Dillon, MSW, talking with you about life, coronavirus, emotions, and how we can all get through this powerfully and happily together.